Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
Welcome to Hong Kong Confidential. I'm Jules Hannaford and I'm your host. I'm an Australian woman and I've been living in Hong Kong for many years. I'm a mother, a teacher, an author, and I want to share my wisdom and the wisdom of others with you. Thanks for joining me and I hope you enjoy the show.
You meet someone online and there's this instant connection. It's amazing how much the two of you just seem to click. They live somewhere far away and there's some plausible reason they can't travel to meet you. They tell you they're in love with you and you feel optimistic for the first time in a long time. They have a successful career, yet somehow they need money from you to solve a short-term problem, always with the promise of paying you back. Time goes on and they need more money more urgently. You've started to see the cracks and begin to wonder whether they've been lying this whole time. All of a sudden it hits you. You've been scammed. Fool Me Twice is the story of my mother, Jules Hannaford, a woman who was drawn into the dangerous world of sweetheart scams. After a trip overseas to meet a stranger, a dangerous altercation in a Manchester hotel room, and thousands of pounds lost for good, she's here to tell her story. Fool Me Twice, a true crime podcast, is available on Apple Podcasts, Ozcast Network, and anywhere you listen to your podcasts.
Today I'm here with Mui Thomas. Hi Mui, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure to have you here. And I found you on Facebook, actually. There's been a few stories about your skin condition recently. Tell me a little bit about it.
I've got a rare genetic skin disorder. It's called Harlequin Ichthyosis. There are, I would say, less than around 100 people in the world with it. I am one of the first generation of survivors. And when I say first generation, that means roughly below the age of 40. Because beyond that, unless people haven't come forward, there aren't that many survivors because of medical technology, because of economic and health conditions. I am believed to be the fourth or fifth oldest at the age of 26.
Wow, that's amazing. Have you ever met anyone else with this condition?
I have met one person, but that was back when we were 10. We were at a skin conference in Seattle. I met a girl, her name is Hunter. She's about, I think, 1 or 2 years younger than me. Our parents kind of got in touch with each other at the very beginning because my mum was doing research, just before I came home and after I came home, indeed, on Harlequin Ichthyosis. And Hunter's mum, who is unfortunately no longer with us, was a massive source of valuable information. And so, in a way, our families have been connected almost like for about over 15, 20 years now. But I met Hunter when I was about 9, 10. And let me say, we did not hit it off.
You didn't get on very well.
For me, it was really scary because before that, I'd never seen somebody who looked like me. Growing up in Hong Kong, nobody really looked like me. There's one in Vietnam, there are a couple in the Philippines, but in Hong Kong, I am the only person. And for me, it was really weird. It was really sort of scary for me. And we didn't hit off very well. But through circumstances, through social media, we found each other again. We sort of got back in touch. We follow each other on social media and Facebook. We try to chat sometimes on the FaceTime.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
It might be different now you're adults.
Yeah, definitely. We are very same, but different.
Yes, yeah.
Because I think we are bonded by the fact we both have Harlequin Ichthyosis, but we are actually two polar opposites as well.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
For the listeners out there, can you give a description of the condition and how it affects you? Because obviously people can only hear you, they can't see you.
Harlequin ichthyosis is one of a group of conditions called ichthyosis, with Harlequin being the rarest. It is characterized by red skin, I suppose would be the best way to put it. I mean, there will be people who say it's not red, it's something else. But I think the best way to characterize my skin condition, it's that my skin is redder. It looks to the average person that I might be sunburnt, because also my skin flakes off. My skin grows at roughly 10 times faster than the average person. So what would take a average person probably 2 weeks to grow even a small amount of skin, it would take me roughly overnight.
Right.
I'm constantly shedding, and because it's old skin, also apart from that, visually, I also have temperature control issues. For me, being in the sun isn't really advisable because I'd overheat and I can't sweat. So my dad came up with a really interesting analogy. For me, in the summer, it's a bit like being in a car with the windows rolled up in the summer. He also used that analogy to refer to another woman in the States, much older than me, with another form of ichthyosis. She was out hiking in the California sun, and she unfortunately passed away because one of the factors was overheating. So the best way to describe having the temperature control issues is that, it's in the summer, it's like being encased in a hot car with the windows rolled up and you're just sitting there. So I can get very hot.
You've got to be really careful going to the beach or even
I've got
playing
to be
sport.
really careful, but me being me, I kind of just throw caution to the wind a lot of the time. I just prefer to live in the moment and deal with the consequences later, so to speak.
What would the consequences be? That you've got to really rehydrate and that you're really tired?
I wouldn't say it's a consequence, because I hope I'm getting better at looking after myself with the heat and stuff like that. But I've got to hydrate like crazy. I've got to remember to put sunscreen on.
Yes.
Which I often forget. But also, I've got to be very mindful because fevers can still happen at night. They haven't happened for a while because obviously I've tried to take more precautions, but the risk of a fever is still there. Actually, even if it's not that hot, fevers can still happen for me. And also for me, temperature-wise, I get hot really easily. I get cold really easily. There is no middle ground for me sometimes.
So you have to wear layers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, I really don't like layers as well.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I don't enjoy wearing layers, especially in Hong Kong, because like it can get really, really hot outside. But then you go into a shopping mall and it's like 20 degrees colder.
Exactly.
I don't know if my body is sometimes because of Hong Kong's
Yeah, exactly.
aircon thing,
too.
or if it's actually my thing.
Tell me about your parents. How old were you when they adopted you, and how did they come to the decision to adopt you?
When I was born, obviously, I was abandoned at birth.
Were you born in Hong Kong?
Yes, I was born in Hong Kong. So I was given up by the biological parents. I spent some time actually down the road at the Duchess of Kent Hospital because training. And anyway, my parents wanted to do some weekend fostering because they were considering moving to Australia to start a new life, start a family. They wanted to do some weekend fostering, and they went to the social welfare department and they said, we would like to do some weekend fostering. We'd like to give some fun to somebody. And the social worker had a pile of files by her side. Obviously, I'm not my parents, so I can't speak directly for them. However, from what I'm told, my file was at the top. However, apparently the social worker was quite negative about it because I think she wanted to give the impression that there were healthier babies around. There were more attractive, so to speak, more attractive babies that could be fostered. And I could be put to the side, so to speak. But my parents were very determined. They said, no, we'll just take the first thing on top of the pile.
Oh,
and
wow.
They saw my photo and they visited me for the first time a few weeks later, I think. As I said, I'm not 100% sure, but they met me a short while later. From what they say, we had loads of fun, but because of being abandoned at birth, there were obviously a lot of other issues as well. But obviously, as you can tell, 26 years later, they haven't moved to Australia.
Yeah.
And we're still on a very long weekend.
Yeah. You're still fostering you.
We're still fostering.
That's really lovely. And I believe that they were told that your condition would be fatal and that you might not live for very long. So how does it feel to hear that you're still thriving at 26?
For me, being a child, I never really thought of it. My parents did an amazing job of making sure that I had fun. They did an amazing job of making sure that whatever time I had left for them, right, that I just had the best fun ever. And I was totally oblivious to it. As a 3-4-year-old, you don't necessarily think of mortality.
And they probably didn't tell you either, did they?
No, not really. And I don't think that they had to.
No.
I think what the doctors originally predicted, maybe 3. I would live to the age of 3.
Well, you've outlived that by a long way.
But my parents met me at the age of 1.5. And so they decided to adopt after a certain few incidences and occasions, so to speak, where it was evident that I needed a family. Doctors said maybe 3, then it was raised to 5, because at the same time, the doctors had no idea. You know, the doctors didn't know what they were dealing with.
You're the only one in Hong Kong.
Yeah, I mean, for them, it was actually a lot of guesswork. It was a lot of finger crossing, so to speak. And then made it to 10. And then my parents say that around the age of 10, they started to think, okay, she's still here. We may have a chance. My parents, I believe, they constantly on tenterhooks because, you know, what if this day could be the last? But I think the last major hospitalization was around the age of 5. The major, because I was in hospital a lot with infections, fevers. But last major one was around the age of 5. We made it to 10. Okay, we have a fighting chance. And here I still am.
That's brilliant.
I think my mortality was never really discussed. But as I got older, though, it is now in the back of my mind because, you know, people are getting older.
But like you said, with modern medicine and all of and, you know, you're in one of the best cities in the world for medical care.
Yes.
Even though the bedside manner's not great.
It's just a bit.
Yeah, they've got really good teaching hospitals here.
I think I'm very blessed because also, and I'm not like trying to bash anybody's healthcare system at all, but Hong Kong's healthcare system is affordable as well.
It's super affordable.
It's super affordable.
And the public system is excellent.
Slow.
It's slow.
It's slow. The bedside manner can be a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
You actually get really good care because, I mean, I know a few situations in, for example, the States where people are paying lots of money for a cream, just tubs of cream.
Sure, and you've got to have insurance and everything.
Insurance and cream and stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm here at the Prince of Wales picking up a 6-month supply of cream plus other tablets and stuff like that. And I think I only pay 100 Hong Kong dollars for it. And you can imagine the glares you get from some people, right?
Other people would be very jealous from other countries because I bet in the US they're paying hundreds of US dollars.
Oh, yeah. One of my friends, Hunter, actually, I mean, obviously, you know, she's got the care and everything, but it's still a dent. So, I mean, I complain a lot about waiting times. I complain a lot about the staff and the manner at times. But ultimately, without the Hong Kong healthcare system, I would not be alive. But I would also say that, you know, I'm very lucky as well to have pro bono healthcare from Dr. Lauren Bramley as well.
Oh, that's
who
brilliant.
Also helps keeps me ticking and out of hospital as well.
Isn't that nice? So a big risk is infection, is it?
Yes.
So how do you manage your condition when it comes to infection?
When it comes to infection, I just have to be very careful. I mean, I have to be super hyper vigilant. I actually had a skin infection not long ago, actually. I mean, I still have a little bit, but it's not that bad. But for some reason, after the Hong Kong Sevens, I discovered like little bumps on my legs that looked like mosquito bites, but they weren't mosquito bites, but they were also busting open. Okay, this wasn't a good sign. And so I went to Lauren Bramley. I went private because if I can go private for however long I'm blessed to be able to go there, I would rather go there than go to the hospital.
Of course, yeah.
If possible. And let me please say it's an honor and a privilege to be able to have the access that I have.
Yeah, it's lovely, isn't it? It's great.
If it stops now, then I'd be blessed no matter what.
Look, that's just a sign of the community that we have here in Hong Kong.
Yeah,
it's a wonderful,
so willing to help,
they are.
And
it's a wonderful community. We're really lucky.
So with my infections, what I did was I just went straight over there. I said, look, this doesn't look right. What do we do? and I was put on a bit of cream. And when that didn't quite work out as well as we hoped, I was put on antibiotics. We're getting there.
Great.
We're done. But for me, I have to be hypervigilant because like any sort of infection can open anything, like, for example, sometimes from my eyes, like I have to be careful with my eyes because I have mucus and that is like MRSA as well. Could be, it's all sorts of things. And if it runs into cuts, then we're on deep trouble.
And so do you have to moisturize every day?
Yeah, I have to moisturize probably on the hourly. If not, okay, maybe that's an exaggeration, but
very often.
Quite often.
Right.
But it's definitely not a once a day thing.
Right. So quite a few times a day.
I like to joke to people that I can get through maybe a tub every 2 days in the summer, but it's like 2 tubs every day in the winter because of the dryness.
Right, yes, because it's quite humid here in Hong Kong,
extreme,
so that's
isn't
helpful.
it?
Yeah, it's very dry in the winter. My nose goes so dry.
And infections are always be a big thing for me.
What was it like growing up for you as a child with this condition and going to school in particular?
Okay, so I think my parents made a massive, massive effort to make sure I had the best childhood I could because, as I said before, nobody knew what was going to happen, right, with, my health. Nobody knew if the next day would be my last. They were great. I mean, my childhood was happy. It was fun. We went out lots. My parents never hid me away. They always pushed me forward, said hello, give a wave, a kiss. Sometimes I had to hug people, which I wasn't that keen on.
No, most kids aren't.
But I think that social-wise has put me in good stead now.
Yes, you're self-confident, you can communicate well and all of that. And
I'm still nervous, but I can still go and say hello and...
Yeah.
And I have to credit my mum for that.
That's lovely though, isn't it? It's great that they wanted to give you a regular childhood as much as possible while caring for
because it was still at the back of their minds.
Of course. Did you get bullied at school?
Yeah, I did. Probably like primary school wasn't as intense, I suppose, because I think I still had the structure.
And little kids are more accepting, aren't they?
I suppose so. And I still had trouble making friends socially. But the teachers and everyone, they were great. I mean, they were really good. I'm an ESF kid, so through in, throughout.
It's a great system, isn't it? With good teachers.
It's a great system. There are some, flaws here and there, but I'm not here to bash anybody,
of course.
Because I think, especially with the bullying that I went through in school, it was horrible. Don't get me wrong. It was intense.
In high school, yeah?
In high school, yeah. It was intense. It was horrible. I suppose at the time... And I could be speaking out of turn here, so I'm just going to...
Go ahead. Feel free.
I'm representing my family here, so for me at the time, I didn't look or notice anything untoward about how people handled my bullying, especially when I was being cyberbullied. It was very much in its infancy when I was in school. It was not as well researched. It was not as well recognized, I suppose, unlike playground bullying, right? Do I wish things could have gone differently? Thinking about it now, yes, I do. I wish things didn't happen the way that they did, but school was difficult. And I must admit, I was quite happy to leave when I finished year 13. As I said, I'm not here to criticize teachers because, I think they were doing what they thought was the best. However,
they weren't able to put a stop to it.
Yes and no. And no, because we had to get some involvement from outsiders as well.
Right, okay. Oh, that's a shame.
Yeah.
That shows how intense it was.
It was very intense. When you're being picked on the internet by somebody, there's only so much people can really do, hence why you have to sometimes go to outsiders.
How did that impact you as a teenager?
Very deeply. I think that I didn't trust anybody. It was very difficult because, when you go to school and you're being bullied at home as well, behind a computer screen, you go to school and you're just like, were you the person? Were you the person? Were you the person? There's no trust. There's nobody you can trust because you're just on the edge of your seat the whole time.
Because you'd be suspicious because you just wouldn't know who's doing it.
Everybody.
Yeah, it makes sense.
There came a point, it just got too much and I contemplated ending my life over it because it was just so intense.
Wow.
Luckily, I'm still here.
Yeah, thank goodness you're still here.
But it was, I mean, honestly, I'm not trying to bash anybody because it's not.
No, look, I understand. I think, this is great we're talking about this because many kids get bullied around the world for all sorts of different reasons.
Yeah.
And I wish it could stop completely. And by you speaking up about it is really helpful. Because if there's one young child listening to this who's been bullied and to see that you got to the point where you thought about ending your life, but you've made it through and you're 26 and doing amazing things, then that's going to be really inspiring for them. So thank you so much for sharing.
No, don't be. I mean, I can talk about it a bit more because I think this is also what leads into the girl behind the face as well.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. What is the girl behind the face?
So the girl behind the face is an initiative that my parents and I set up in 2015, basically because of the cyberbullying and because of things that happened earlier in my life. My parents wrote a book. Ever since I was young, they denied all interviews. They refused interviews. There were people and journalists from all over the world who wanted interviews with the family because, hey, I've got Harlequin Ichthyosis,
You're quite unique, and so there's an interest.
And there was a massive interest, but my parents said no because they didn't want to exploit me and they didn't want me to grow up in sort of the
media eye, the public eye.
Until I could understand it myself. So we set it up 2015.
And it's a Facebook page, is it?
Yeah, so it's a book which we are trying to find a publisher for.
Great. Good luck with that.
And a Facebook page. So the thing about the Facebook page was that somebody said to my dad, we need to get interest for the book if you would like us to help out. So my parents thought, okay, set up a Facebook page. If we get about 500 people or 100 people,
that's good enough. Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
How many have you got?
The day we set it up, overnight we had 1,000. Overnight.
Wow, that's amazing.
And then we're now at 25,000.
25,000 followers. Yeah. That's brilliant.
And I think our platform has gone beyond just trying to get a book out, but it's also about empowering others, people who may not have a voice, talking about things like visible difference and living life to the best that you can.
And not judging people.
Not judging people. And also being a voice for people who don't have one. And definitely the cyberbullying, because I mean, we've had a lot of, especially recently, I don't know why.
What, you're still getting cyberbullied?
Yeah, I'm still getting cyberbullied. It's not fun.
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there who are trolls and that's what they do, or they have mental health issues or for whatever reason they're really miserable in their own lives and they've got to target others.
What's really weird is that people see our stories, which, is in my mind our story, and I just think it's our story. I mean, I still find it amazing when people say, oh my gosh, you're so inspiring. And I'm just like, it's just our story. It's just our family. It's what we've gone through. And I've had a couple of instances where I've got some pretty horrible messages and it still happens. I thought I got over that incident when I was 15 and I thought that would be the last time, but no, it still happens. And I think, by raising awareness of it with the girl behind the face and, by bringing light to the fact that it happens. And if you just happen to be somebody behind the screen doing this, just think of what you're doing because you never know what the other person might be going through.
It's a very cowardly way to act because it's very easy to sit back in your own home, in your own room, behind a screen and write really malicious stuff.
Yeah.
But a lot of people would never say that face to face because they wouldn't have the courage.
Yeah.
Just people need to understand that words can really hurt and it can really impact people terribly.
Yeah.
And it can be super dangerous.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's happening globally to people for all sorts of reasons. And it's really sad.
It's really sad. I mean, I read a thing on Facebook, I think 2 years ago, maybe a year ago, about a girl who actually ended her life because of bullies. I think they were online. She was 13.
It's tragic, isn't it?
Yeah, she was 13. And it hit very close to home for me because I was 13 when the cyberbullying first started for me, like the worst bits. I don't know if it happened earlier, but when I was 13, it was pretty intense.
You don't have to obviously name anybody, but did they ever catch your cyberbully?
Yes.
They did?
They did.
Okay, awesome. And did that stop it then at that time?
Oh, yeah, it stopped. Unfortunately, the person was a friend. They went
so you had to carry on at school with them?
Yeah. The person was in the year above me.
Oh, good. At least you weren't in the same year.
Yeah, I still saw him a lot. And this is what's so important about raising awareness is that when I said, why did you do it? Because we were put in a room together by a teacher. I don't know why, but we were put in a room and I had to face him for the first time after we found out it was this person. I think I was like in tears and I was like, why did you do it? And his reply was a teenager reply, which was, I just thought it was a bit of fun. I didn't think it would go so far. And I think that is so incredibly important to stress that so many people who do it, so many people who cyberbully or send messages or text messages or whatever, they probably genuinely think it's just a bit of fun and then that it would not get out of hand. Because sometimes, the person on the other hand, they aren't able to speak up. They aren't able to fight back in the way that my parents and I have fought back.
You were lucky that you had such great support from your parents.
Yeah, I mean, even though, I wanted to end my life over it.
Did your parents know that you felt that depressed and upset about it?
Yeah, we were there in it all together. I mean, there was one time when I handed my mum a suicide note.
Oh, no.
Because it was so intense.
And how did she cope with that? What did she do?
Obviously, as a mother, she was devastated, but took a lot of work to get to the stage where I am now. I was never alone. I mean, my parents were always there for me. They helped me. They basically helped me get my mojo back. It's been a very long journey and we're still sort of working through things.
Well, that's amazing. Family's everything.
Family support is literally everything.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so brilliant. I was going to say you're so lucky, but it's not luck. It's just a great thing.
I'm lucky though. That's the thing. Like, I am lucky because a lot of people don't have that support that I am so blessed to have, right?
That's so true. What would you say to any teenager out there who's listening, who's being bullied at school? What advice would you have for them?
It is often easier said than done. But if you feel like you're being bullied or if you are indeed being bullied, it is so important to find somebody that you trust and that you honor and talk to them about it. It is not easy. Believe me, I did not want to speak up because I thought I would get in trouble for talking to people I didn't know online. But it is so important to speak up. It is so important to not hide away because by hiding away, that just actually makes things worse. And it made me feel worse as well by hiding away and not because it was eating up at me. If you can find somebody who you trust, please be open. Please be willing as well.
Yeah, so that could be a teacher or your parents or
teacher,
a coach.
Parent, your sports coach.
Yeah.
Anybody.
School counsellor.
Yeah. I would go so far as to say maybe not somebody your own age.
I think that's great advice. They can be a good support, but they can't take action.
Yes. A responsible adult.
Yes, I think that's great advice.
I'm sure you've got great friends and everything, but a responsible adult is definitely the best for this sort of situation.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Mui, how do you cope if you have truly dark days? How do you overcome them? What sort of things do you do to feel better?
There are days like when I do feel really dark. I'm still trying to work through it myself because I think it's a work in progress because of things that have happened as a child and through my teens and stuff like that. There are times now where, I've got really good moments and really bad moments. And the bad moments are a lot when I see things, I don't know why, but seeing things online with people I went to school with, people that I knew. And I'm just like, I wish I was with you guys. Like, I wish I had the ability to be as confident enough to go out with you guys, confident enough to actually stick in a group. So there are times when I get really down about that because I think something that I said to somebody last night, I look like I have it all together. I look like I have it all together. However, inside, it's not always the case. I have a lot of dark moments and I spend a lot of time on my own, especially when it's dark. I'm still trying to work out a positive way to, channel that sort of darkness. But I find that, trying to relax a bit, maybe watch a little bit of YouTube or eat.
Yeah. And also you play rugby and you umpire rugby as well.
Yeah, I referee rugby as well, which is also really good release as well. And those are good sort of distractions. But I think every so often I do let myself fall back into that sort of darkness because it's a lot of what ifs.
Do you feel like, why me? Why do I have to deal with this?
Through so much, I think.
Is it more about what you've been through, or is it the fact that you were born with the condition?
I think it's a little bit of both, I suppose.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. I'm still accepting the fact that I have a skin condition. I'm still accepting the fact that I'm not like everybody else, that I do have limitations. But I think socially and emotionally, there's a lot of why me as well.
I understand. And, I think that as you continue to grow, I think you should embrace this role model thing and this inspiration thing, because you really are an inspiration.
I think for me, it's a family thing. I think it's something that we could work on with our initiative.
It's a great idea. It's going to grow, isn't it?
Because this is something that I cannot do myself.
If there's any publishers out there listening, you can contact Mui through her
Girl Behind the Face
Facebook page if you'd be interested in publishing the book. So please get in touch, and I'll put the link to the Facebook page in the show notes.
Yeah.
Do people still stare and make rude comments to you in this day and age now that you're older?
Oh, hell yes.
And do they make assumptions about what's going on with you?
Definitely. I don't know if I can say that I'm used to it. When people stare at me and point and all that stuff, it's hurtful, it sucks, it's horrible, it's degrading. Because the thing is, I just want to be an ordinary person. I just want to go out, I want to do my own thing and go back home and shut the world out.
Do people ever ask you, like, directly, or ask?
Yes and no. I mean, a lot of it is assumptions. And I don't want to put any race into the picture here, but it happens like anywhere I go, whether I'm in Hong Kong, whether I'm overseas. This is what I said to my parents. I always used to think that people in Hong Kong were worse because they were more visual. They were more open about their reactions. They would be the people who are like, what happened to you? And, they would be the ones who are screwing their faces up and all that.
There's a level in Chinese culture of directness, isn't there?
Oh, yes, they are so direct. And then I used to think, because bear in mind, me and my innocent mind, I thought that people in Western countries were a lot nicer because they weren't so open about it. But I think, as my dad also pointed out to me, it's not that they don't react. They react. Maybe they'll look in the corner of their eye, or they're going to, do a double take or something, but it's not as outward. But of course, there have been a couple of incidences, which you'll probably read in our book, about a couple of horrible incidences where people in the Western world have reacted very negatively to me.
I did read in one article that somebody accused your mum of burning you.
Yep.
That's crazy.
But I think as well, it's uneducation, I suppose. And I think it's assumptions, because I think that I'm starting to see it in a way that when people make these comments to me, when people make reactions to me, well, it depends on my mindset that day. But I don't think that it's always about the fact that they think I'm really scary. I think it's actually a lack of education.
Yeah, I agree. And
it's difficult as well to sort of comprehend that sometimes, because we know when I'm having a really horrible day, I think the world is out to get me and I think I hate you all, But, I think sometimes it's genuinely a lack of education.
Yeah, it's ignorance.
People have said as well sometimes that I need to show a little bit of compassion to people. But then I said in a school talk, which we've been doing a few of, I have to learn to understand other people, but other people don't have to learn to understand me.
And that doesn't seem fair.
I think my dad wrote that for me. And I think that is almost like a nail on the head for how I feel sometimes.
Yeah. It'd be nice if people made a little more effort to understand and to be compassionate and I think, and more generous rather than judgmental.
I'm not saying that everybody has to be super nice all the time. I obviously deal with things very differently in the way that some other people deal with it, because some people that I know, especially with visible differences, they don't want people to ask them what's wrong with them. They would be like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. And if somebody said to me, what's wrong with you? I'm like, I have a skin condition. I'm going to call a spade a spade. I have a skin condition. There's no hiding it. I can't say there's nothing wrong with me because there's obviously something wrong. I have different ways. I mean, for me, I deal with reactions a little differently to the way that some people do.
I think confronting it head on is a good way.
And I think that it's important as well, not to just hide, not to hide behind, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm like, there is something wrong with you.
Definitely. And you're helping other people who are visibly different as well by speaking up.
I think it's just, being confident and being able to admit and accept that you have it. It's not easy.
No,
Nobody said it's easy.
Yeah.
But
it's part of the process, isn't it?
It's part of the process.
Yeah. What are your opinions on adoption? Do you have any thoughts on adoption?
In what sense?
Like, you're adopted, and does that impact you in any way? And do you have any thoughts or advice on adoption?
Well, the thing is, my parents are my parents. I hate when people say you're adoptive parents, because they're not my adoptive parents. They're my parents. I mean, yeah, they didn't give birth to me, but they are my parents. And I think that with adoption, if you can adopt, do it. But as I said again, I am quite strongly opinionated on some things.
That's a good thing.
I'm just the sort of person, if you want to adopt and if you can adopt, go for it. I would probably adopt later on in life.
And families come
My grandmother's adopted.
Oh, is she? Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, we come from a pretty cool family.
And families come in all shapes and sizes. Gay parents.
And they don't have to be genetic. That's the thing.
That's right. Exactly.
I don't know if I'm playing with fire by saying this, but I think that sometimes too much of a big deal can be made about adoption, about things like root tracing, with being grateful. There was one Facebook group where I think we wrote about adoption, and I think somebody said I should not be grateful that I was adopted because I said I was grateful that I was adopted. And somebody was like, oh, you should not be grateful. I'm like,
but nobody should tell you how you should feel.
Exactly.
They're your feelings.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you your opinion.
Yeah.
You know, it's yours.
Yes. I mean, my parents are my parents, and I totally advocate adoption.
Brilliant. That's awesome.
If it's a furry friend or a human person.
That's great. What are they like, your parents? How would you describe them, your mum and your dad? Like, mums that push you forward, a strong woman by the sounds of it?
Yeah, strong woman, very courageous, very supportive, very loving. My mum is more the hugger. My dad's more the talker.
Right. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
And is your dad also as supportive and pushing you forward?
Both of them are and have been, and hopefully will continue to be as supportive as they've always been.
That's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, because I think family support is so massive. And it's also one of the reasons why we do our initiative, because no one can raise themselves. And, you know, my parents have just done the best that they can, and I am so grateful.
Oh, that's brilliant.
That.
You're an only child, yeah?
Yes.
Yay! What personal qualities have you developed throughout your young life? Like you said, you speak your mind, you're very strong-willed and courageous. You sound a little bit like your mum.
I think there are probably a few traits which I take from my mum, but I think there are a few traits that I take from my dad as well, like rugby.
Yeah.
And being Welsh. I just take traits from both of them. I don't think it's fair to say that I just take it from one of them.
Do you have any connection with Chinese culture, given that you're Chinese, but you've been brought up by Western parents?
That's kind of like a little identity crisis for me sometimes, because I think even though I'm biologically born and raised in Hong Kong, I was raised by a Western family. I must say, I don't know if many transracial adoptees have the same thing, but sometimes, I struggle with that because, you know, sometimes I'm like, should I be more Chinese? Should I be more Western? I mean, it's very confusing sometimes, especially when you're sitting there and somebody asks you, so where are you from? And I'm sitting there and I'm just going, that's
It's
British.
a complicated question.
Mum's German, I'm everything.
Yeah. You're British or German and Hong Kongese. Yeah.
It's an identity thing that I'm still trying to understand. I mean, I pride on being able to eat Chinese food and stuff like that, but I am what's also commonly known as a banana. And when I say banana in the most least derogatory way, that basically means I am white as on the inside and I am Asian on the...
Right, I get it.
Yeah.
Mui, what do you love most about your life?
I think the support networks that I've had, the love, growing up, just everything around me. I mean, you know, I've gone through so many horrible things as well, but I've also come out of it because of the support of so many people.
Thank you so much for coming to talk to me on this podcast today. It's been an absolute pleasure. And even though you don't like it, you are an inspiration. And for my listeners out there, I'm starting a new thing on Patreon where I'm going to ask each of my guests to answer 4 questions. They have to pick 4 numbers between 1 to 50, and then they're going to answer those questions. But those questions are going to be on Patreon. So if you would just like to go to Hong Kong Confidential at Patreon and sign up for just $1 a month, you will be able to hear Mui's answers to these 4 questions. So, Mui, what are your 4 numbers you're going to pick from 1 to 50?
22, 12, 19, and 2.
So for my listeners out there, we'll say goodbye. So thank you so much again.
Thank you so
If
much.
you want to hear Mui's answers to these questions, please go and sign up to Patreon. Hi, Confidants. I want to tell you about my Patreon page. I've joined Patreon in the hope of getting sponsorship for my Hong Kong Confidential podcast. Patreon is a great way for my listeners to get on board and sponsor me with monthly payments, and that goes towards my production costs and rewards for my members. If you're interested in checking out my Patreon page, please go to patreon.com and search up Jules Hannaford or Hong Kong Confidential. I would really appreciate you visiting my page. So that brings us to the end of another Hong Kong Confidential podcast. I'm Jules Hannaford. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you'll be with me again next week. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please can you go to iTunes to rate and review it? I would really appreciate your feedback. You can email me at jules@hongkongconfidential.net, and you can find me on Facebook and Instagram at Hong Kong Confidential. If you'd like to hit me up on Twitter, it's at Jules Hannaford. I would love to hear from you.
Love this podcast? Support it and sponsor today. Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.